Hi everyone, welcome to another video by Optionables. My name is Saket and you read it right. We believe Nifty is going to hit all-time high. This was not a clickbait video. I am going to give you proper reasoning as to why we believe Nifty will hit all-time high. Before we actually move into understanding why Nifty will hit all-time high, we have to first understand the market cycles. When we try to understand the market cycles, I am going to give you a proper explanation of the economic theory and how it is slightly different from the reality. So what they tell in the theory is absolutely true, but when it comes to the reality, there will be small differences which I am going to tell you. So I am going to present a lot of data points as to why we believe that even the US markets have bottomed out and there are higher chances that the Nifty will end up hitting the all-time high soon. First, we'll try to understand the economic cycle. So economic cycle is really important for the market to move in a particular direction. If the economy is doing well, then the markets will obviously go higher, and if the economy is not doing well, the markets will come down. To understand economy better, we will take an example of a car. Now let's say you're driving a car. This car is nothing but your economy. So now you have the control to either make the car move very fast or very slow. How do you control it? Just by pressing the accelerator. So when you press the accelerator fast or when you press the accelerator hard, the car will start moving fast. Similarly, when you lift your leg off the accelerator, the car will start moving slowly. You can control the speed of the car at which it moves by pressing the accelerator. Similarly, for the economy, the accelerator is nothing but the interest rate. Whenever the interest rate falls, that time economy will speed up. Whereas whenever the interest rate shoots up, the economy will slow down. How you can use your leg to control the speed of the car? Similarly, the country's central bank will use interest rates to control the speed of economic growth. Now let us try to understand in much more depth how exactly moving the interest rate up and down is going to affect the economy, right? So now let us consider an economy where the interest rate is 10%. And let's also assume you go to buy a house. This house value, let us assume, is 1 crore. If the interest rate is 10% and the borrowed amount is 1 crore, that means yearly your interest payment is around 10 lakh. So we are not even talking about repayment of principal. We are just talking about the interest payment, which is going to come to close to 10 lakh rupees. So that is a quite costly affair for a normal person, paying 10 lakh rupees just as an interest cost. Now let us assume in the economy, right, the interest rate drops from 10% to 1%. So now what you will end up doing, there is a higher chance you will end up taking the loan because your interest payment will fall from 10 lakh a year just to 1 lakh a year. So now whenever the interest payment becomes 1 lakh a year, there are higher chances that even middle class people will be able to afford buying a house because they will be earning well above 1 lakh a year and they can quite easily pay their EMI. So we know that whenever the interest rate is low, that will stimulate borrowing. Not just for house, it will be for any purpose. Let's say you want to buy a car, the interest rate is very low, you can end up taking a car loan paying a very low interest rate. Similarly, let's say you're running a business and you're in need of money. If the interest rate is cheap, then very likely you will go and end up borrowing the money. So this way, whenever the interest rate is low, more and more people will end up borrowing the money. Once you borrow the money from the banks, what will you end up doing? Most likely spend it. So you will be borrowing a home loan to buy a house, or you will be taking a car loan to buy a car, or you will also end up taking a business loan to expand. That means whenever money becomes cheap or the total cost of money becomes cheap, people will end up borrowing it, and when they borrow money, they usually end up spending it. So whenever this money gets spent, it is going to boost the economy because more and more people are buying more and more goods and services, and that is going to push the economy to new highs. That means if the interest rate is low and if it is also going to help the economy improve, then why not keep the interest rate always low? So whenever the interest rate is low, it is not just that people will end up buying goods and services. People might also borrow money to put into various asset classes. So during the time of low interest rate, generally all the asset prices, be it real estate, be it stock market, be it cryptos, no matter which asset you consider, is going to shoot up because people will usually end up preferring holding assets when the interest rate is low. So one more reason why all the asset prices will go up work when the interest rate is low is because even if you keep money in the bank, you will be getting very less return. It is not just the borrowing cost which is falling down, it is also the interest what you receive on your savings will be coming down. So that's the reason people will prefer withdrawing their money from banks when the interest rate is low, and they put it into assets like stock market, real estate, gold, and much more. So on one hand, you have businesses doing really well because people are borrowing money and spending it. So there is high demand for goods and services which is going to boost businesses. So this is one side where the businesses are going to do really well, and because of which the stocks are going to do very well. The second reason is people no longer prefer holding their money in banks or FD because their interest what they will be earning on the savings is very low. That's the reason they will remove money from there and put it into different assets. So these are the two main reasons why during the low interest rate period the assets, especially stock market, is going to perform really well. So the next question is, why not always keep the interest rate low? If keeping interest rate low is so good for the economy, it is going to boost the economy, boost the stock market, then why not always have it at a lower level? So initially, if you remember, we took an example of car. So now let's say you're speeding up the car and from 50 you start driving at 100. So now you're driving at 100. Imagine it is not a straight road or a highway, but it is a curved road. So do you think driving the car at 100 speed in a curved road is safe? It is not. So there might be disaster which can happen if you don't have car under your control. So how can we relate this to economy? Whenever there is a huge demand for goods and services and the borrowing becomes very cheap, people will borrow n amount of money. Just because money is so cheap, they keep borrowing money and keep buying goods and services. Even the businesses will end up borrowing a lot and they buy a lot. So because of this, the demand for the goods and services will be very high, and this will lead to the prices shooting up. So whenever the prices shoot up, it will cause inflation. So inflation is very good for the economy. So I will maybe later make one more video why inflation is good for the economy, but very high inflation is bad for the economy. Inflation anywhere between 2 to 3% for a developed country and anywhere between 5 to 6% for a developing country is considered to be very good. And if inflation is within this range, then the economy will see a steady growth. So now you might ask me, Saket, on what basis did you arrive at these numbers? So did you randomly just tell 2 to 3% for a developed economy and 5 to 6% for a developing economy? The answer is no. One thing you would definitely consider while looking at the ideal inflation rate is the growth rate. If your economy is doing, or if your economy is able to grow at any rate closer or above the inflation rate. So if you take example of US, the average growth rate is around 2%. If you take example of India, the average growth rate is around 5 to 6%. It is always ideal if the inflation rate is lesser than the growth rate, but even if it is closer to the growth rate, then the inflation is within control, because we are growing at a rate much faster than the prices going up. But the moment when the inflation shoots up much faster or at a much higher rate than the economy growing, that is going to cause a lot of concern. So we are going to understand what exactly it is as we move on. But if you take an example of the recent economic crisis, what we went through after COVID, you see example of US, the economic growth rate is just around 1.5–2%, whereas the inflation rate is around 9%. If you see UK, the economic growth rate is around 0.1 to 0.5%, whereas the inflation is 10%. So this means the economy is not under control. So if we have to go back to the example of the car, when we are driving at 100 speed, if we are in a highway, we are under control, but we are in a curved path, we are not under control at a speed of 100. So similarly, when the growth rate is very low, whereas the inflation is very high, that means the economy is not doing well. So why exactly is economy not doing well? Now think about it. What is inflation? The prices of the goods going up. So what is economic growth rate? You can consider economic growth rate is nothing but the rate at which the country is getting richer. When the economy is growing, that means the country is getting richer. So if the country is getting richer, the per capita income or income of the people is also growing. Now consider this situation. In UK, the economic growth rate is around 0.1 to 0.5%. That means their economy is growing at a very slow rate, whereas the prices of their goods is increasing by almost around 10%. Let's say you're earning 1 lakh per month and there is 1% increase in your income after a year, whereas there is 10% increase in the prices of the goods. So first year it is not going to affect you much, right? Second year is also not going to affect you much, but maybe after 2.5, 3 years, you're going to face the pain because the prices of the goods have already gone up by 30%. Let's assume that your rent was around 50,000. Now your rent has become 65,000, whereas your income has just increased from 1 lakh to 1,03,000. So that means if the economic growth rate is much lesser than the inflation rate, then in the long run, people are going to get poor. So economy is not going to do well and people are going to get very poor. That's the reason they always prefer the inflation rate to be lesser or equal to the economic growth rate. So now going back to the car example, when you're traveling very fast in a curved road, what do you end up doing? You end up slowing down. So you have to put the brakes to first come under control. So that's the reason, similarly, central banks are now trying to increase the interest rate so much that the economy will first slow down and the inflation will start coming down. Because of COVID, the interest rates were brought down to zero, and since interest rate came down to zero, there was very high amount of money which was borrowed at zero cost. And central bank also printed money just like a piece of paper and circulated that in the economy. Because there was so much of surplus money, we saw people buy everything possible. They bought stocks, and that's the reason Nasdaq went from 8,000 to almost around 16,000. Then on the other hand, Bitcoin went from almost around 10,000 to 60,000. All this was possible because there was so much money in the economy. Not just that, there is also a story that second-hand cars in US became much costlier than the first-hand car after COVID. Because there was so much cheap money available, people wanted to buy new cars. Since there was so much delay in the delivery of cars, maybe somewhere around 6 months to 1 year, people were ready to pay more for the second-hand car than the first-hand car itself. So when money is so cheap and when people are spending left, right, center, you will obviously expect the prices to shoot up. And because of this, the inflation skyrocketed and hit almost around 8 to 9% in US, whereas the economy is only growing at 1.5–2%. So all of us know, and all of us have already understood, it is not a good situation at all, because if this continues, people in US are going to get economically poor. So money wise they are not going to get poor, but economically they are getting poor, because over the course of time, at this rate of inflation, the total amount of goods what they can afford with the money they have is going to come down. So that's the reason central bank took it as a priority to first fight the inflation, get it under control, and then increase the speed. So that is exactly what you do even when you are driving a car. So as soon as a curved road comes, you will first slow down. After you slow down, you bring the car under control. Then as you start to move in the curved road, slowly you will start increasing the speed. So maybe let's say from 100 you come down to 20 or 40, and slowly you will take it to 60 and 80, and further when the road straightens, you are going to increase it to 100. That's the reason central bank immediately started increasing the interest rate, not just in US but across the world. So even ECB, that is European Central Bank, increased the rates. Even RBI in India started increasing the rate to combat inflation. If you look at the situation in India, it is much better than the countries in the West. So here the inflation rate is somewhere around 7–7.5%, whereas the economic growth rate is around 6 to 6.5%. That means we are better placed than the economies in the West. So now Fed is increasing the interest rate from zero continuously for the previous 4 to 5 quarters, and right now it is at 4%. And it is further expected to increase the interest rates in the coming quarters also, maybe where it will hit 5.5 to 6%. That's where people believe that it will end up peaking. And once the interest rate goes up, the borrowing becomes lesser. People will pull out money from stocks, people will pull out money from all the asset classes and keep the money in the bank, because banks will start offering very high interest. So once all this done, the economy will slow down. Inflation will come under control because the demand will start slowly going down for the goods. Inflation will come under control, and later central banks will further start decreasing the interest rates to boost the economy. So now you might definitely ask me, Saket, central bank is just in the middle of increasing the interest rate. Right now it is at 4%, and they estimate the interest rates to go up almost around 5.5–6%. In spite of this, why do you feel that the stock market is going to hit the all-time high? Because just now we have discussed that if the interest rates are going up, then the stock market will not do well, economy won't do well. So only when the interest rates come down, the economy will end up doing well. So this is where I told you the theory is slightly different from the reality or how it actually happens in the real world. So I'm going to explain in the next video why exactly, even though the interest rates are going up or interest rates might continue to go up, we will still end up hitting an all-time high. And we strongly believe that in the next 6 months, Nifty should be hitting the all-time high. With this, we also come to the end of the first video, or the first part of the video, why we feel that the markets will hit all-time high, and also we'll be discussing more about economics in the next video. I hope that this video was informative and you were able to understand the concepts of economics. So if so, then do hit the like button, share this video and subscribe to Optionables. Thank you so much for joining.